Let's take a look at some charts in the ZRX article for Brave New Coin. As usual, everything on this channel is for educational information and is not intended as financial advice. So ZRX is a token and system that allows decentralized exchanges to use the protocol on top of Ethereum. So if we look at all of the decentralized exchanges that are tracked, which are known as relayers in the ZRX world, and we look at the total trade volume since inception, we can see that it's basically plateaued out here. It's flat since 2019. Nothing super exciting has happened. This is from zerotracker.com, and one of the issues with this chart is that relayers have come and gone, relayers have been added recently, and relayers have left ZRX a year back or more. So it's hard to really know what exactly is going on here from a valuation perspective for the token, because the token's not even used as fees for the network or anything like that. It's not really held by anybody. They just recently enabled staking on the network and some governance stuff. But so far, the use case for the token itself hasn't really been there. You could argue that based on this data, that there's certainly an appetite for trading in a decentralized way using Ethereum as the nuts and bolts of the exchange and ZRX as the protocol. We can also look at this from a trade count perspective, so the number of trades that have happened. And you can see there's definitely been peaks and troughs, again, related to the relayers that are tracked or not tracked or disappeared from ZRX. Recently, there was a relayer that was added, seeing lots of trades in Q4 2019. But overall, just based on notional value, there isn't really any, which is fine. But you're not really going to capture institutional interest, unless there's massive notional volume. That's my opinion, but I think that's what's important here. And from a ZRX token valuation perspective, it's hard to see that there's a immediate future in a massive bullish rally just because a few relayers are doing really well. This certainly says a lot about decentralized exchanges and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, stuff like that. But as far as the ZRX token is concerned, there isn't really underlying data to support a massive bull run at the moment. If we switch gears to the technical analysis portion, so this is the daily Bitfinex chart. I like to look at the 50 EMA, which is the green, and the 200 EMA, which is the red. Basically, the 200 EMA is the past year's worth of price data averaging, and the 50 is the past quarter year averaging. So you can see that for the most part, ZRX USD has been below the 200 since inception. Certainly not a bullish perspective. And it's largely been below the 50 since inception. These horizontal bars here on the side are what's called VPVR, or the volume profile of the visible range. And what this is pointing out is that all of the volume historically has sort of happened from 16 cents to 33 cents. And you can look at 33 cents as a massive resistance level. There's a lot of interest here, more interest than anywhere else. So if it can break 33, that says it's probably going to keep going, because at 33, there were a lot of sellers. There were more sellers than buyers. There was a lot of interest there at that price range. Whereas above 33, much less volume, obviously. Another thing I'm looking at if I'm bullish is a 5200 golden cross. Now, if it can break 25, which is about where the 200 EMA is, if it can break 33, these are all levels that I'd look for bullish continuation. And then with the bullish 5200 cross, which hasn't happened, barring this brief cross here, again, since inception. For these tokens especially, there's a lot that's not shown on this chart. When did the team's tokens unlock? When did people who bought early on in the ICO pre-round fundings tokens unlock? Are these people selling? Do these people have a long-term interest in ZRX, that sort of thing? So recently the staking was enabled, like I mentioned. We'll see if that is as bullish for ZRX as it was for Tezos, XTZ. It certainly was bullish for Tezos as more and more exchanges started enabling staking for the first time, really, on Tezos. It hasn't happened for ZRX yet. But if that does happen, you could see bullish impetus here. bullish impulsion. Looking at the cloud, again, we want it above the cloud. It's not above the cloud yet if we're bullish. It's certainly more bearish than bullish here. But really the big thing is this 33 cents zone. If it can break above that, then it should be good to go for some bullish action. And looking at the ZRX BTC pair, again, since inception, it's largely been below the 200, below the cloud. Nothing remotely bullish, even below the 50 for most of its life. Briefly above both in September, back in the doldrums now, and the VPVR pointing to massive volume in the current range from like 1500 to 2K sats. So if it can break above the cloud, above the 200 EMA again, there's reasonable potential that it can finally have some bullishness to like 7,000 sats, you know, where this next big volume node interest is sitting previously. If it does get above the cloud in the 200, the first target is always the previous local high, which is around 4,000 sats. Otherwise, new lows would be at the current local low of around 1,500 sats. And there's not really much below that. So if it keeps pushing lower, there's really no bottom. You know, if it breaks this massive volume zone interest, it'll just keep going. It'll just keep capitulating, much like Zcash, how it just bleeds and bleeds and bleeds. You know, this is the most bearish picture when you just get this slow bleed, slow bleed, slow bleed. Seeing this massive bearish dump volume-wise is actually more bullish because people are finally saying, okay, I'm selling everything I have here, capitulation, fear, however you want to call it. And then we start to establish this bottom range, this accumulation range. So if we break this massive previous capitulation, you can certainly see lower lows in 2020.